It's the Eagle Community Television Forum with your host, Gary Shorman.
Welcome to the Eagle TV Forum. I'm Becky Kaiser. I'm substituting for Gary Shorman, and we want to thank our sponsor for the program, Hayes Med. Our very special guest today is Linda Mills, who is the Executive Director of First Call for Help for Ellis County. Linda, you're based here in Hayes. People hopefully have heard about First Call for Help, but kind of give us a thumbnail sketch of what the agency actually does.
Okay, well, First Call for Help is an agency that was formed to assist with transients and other folks in the county that needed some assistance, whether that was financial, emergency financial help, or just resources. Where can they go to get help with a specific type of issue? And so that's how they started out. From there, we've progressed over the years to do Meals on Wheels and also Backpacks for Kids, which happens in the summertime.
That's a big program.
It is. It's a very big program. And we also just started a diaper stash last year in May that Hayes High students helped collect the diapers for the diaper stash. And that helps to provide low-income families with diapers once a month. Not enough to, not all that they need, but enough to just kind of supplement the end of the pay period. So,
well, what we wanted to talk to you today about, Linda, is recently you and some other agency representatives throughout Northwest Kansas were involved in a coalition about homelessness in Northwest Kansas, which to some people may sound incongruous, like homelessness and in rural areas, but in fact we do have such unfortunate circumstances and statistics.
We do. You don't see it like you would in Kansas City or Wichita. We have a lot of what's called couch surfing or doubling up because they can't afford a place of their own or don't have a place to go. We have a small, probably handful of homelessness at any given time, but you're not likely to see them, sleeping under bridges. They during the winter time, they do find places to stay with friends for a night or two. But in the summertime, it's nicer out. They can camp out and like that.
So couch surfing, this would be somebody who knows a friend or maybe a relative that has a spare bedroom or a spare couch, and they're just staying in that, or the floor perhaps, and staying there temporarily. But that can get kind of,
right.
That probably doesn't work very well long term.
No, it doesn't work very well long term, and it doesn't really work very well for families. And people have a tendency to go from house to house, so they'll stay one place for a little while until they've kind of worn out their welcome, and then have to find another place to stay.
How do you know who's actually homeless in Ellis County? Where do you get that information, those statistics?
It's very difficult to get that information. Now, the school district has done a really good job for the last few years of tracking their students that report as homeless or doubling up, and in most cases, that is what is happening is they're doubling up. Either they are staying with a friend or even their family is staying with other relatives or friends.
Do the families get split up sometimes, having to spread out among other residences?
They do. We had one instance a couple of years ago where someone was evicted and she had either 2 or 3 children, I'm not remembering exactly, but she had to have her oldest son stay someplace else so that she could, because whoever she was staying with did not have room for all of them.
So you're talking about some information that becomes available at Hayes High School. Where else? How else do you find out about these people?
At First Call for Help, we track pretty much every phone call that comes in. We will jot down at least what they needed and where we referred them to. And last year, we had 187 referrals for housing, which means we could not provide funds to pay a deposit and first month's rent to get them in a house. And so we sent them gave them phone numbers for the Public Housing Authority and other agencies because we're not able to help in those situations. And so, and we also know that the public housing authorities have a waiting list. They've almost always had a waiting list every time I call. So we know that that person that we refer, you know, while they may get on the waiting list, it's not going to be a solution for them right away.
Now, when you talk about public housing, this is subsidized housing, rental housing?
Right. My understanding of the way Section 8 vouchers work, and that is where we most often send people, is to the Hayes Public Housing Authority. Section 8 is a type of housing that can either be location-based, such as the Sunset Trails on 13th Street, those apartments that you see there. Those are actually owned, I think, by the Housing Authority, but then it can also be just off-site locations. So if your name came up on the waiting list, you could go and look for an apartment that met the conditions for the size of your family and your income. And if that housing passed inspection, then you'd receive a subsidy on your rent for that particular apartment or residence.
Do most of those places pass inspection?
Some do, but a lot of the ones that fall into the price range, if you will, the amount of monthly rent, because you can't go over a certain amount with the federally funded applications. And so you've got to find something that falls into that category, and that's not always easy in town. Those are usually the lower rent ones where the landlords don't put as much effort into fixing them up and making sure everything's working properly.
And that brings up the issue, is the city able to do anything about substandard rental units?
At this, I can't really speak for the city, but I know that there's not an inspection process, and I'm not sure that there should be. But some of the solutions or ideas that were proposed at the focus group were to have some sort of a rating system for landlords, which would give people enough information to know, okay, these landlords are doing a good job with repairs and upkeep on their rentals. Their late fees are lower. Some late fees can be as high as $25 to $50 a day if you don't pay your rent by the time specified.
And that adds up.
Yeah, it does very much.
Are most of these families and individuals who are classified as homeless in Ellis County, are they working? Do they have jobs?
Most of the people that come to First Call for Help have jobs. They are working, they're a lower wage earner, so they're not really making enough to live on. A lot of them are doing part-time work, and it's difficult to do several part-time jobs, especially when the schedules fluctuate as much as they do.
And if you have children that you need to get to school and back and maybe other activities, that's a difficult schedule.
Yes, it is, very much so.
Well, Linda, we were going to take a break right now and get some more information from Hayes Med. When we come back, we'll talk about maybe some possible solutions about homelessness in Ellis County. We'll be right back.
Hayes Med is your first and best choice for healthcare. They're the only facility providing tertiary level services in this region. With more than 70 physicians and 26 specialties ranging from heart, orthopedic, spine care, cancer, obstetrics and gynecology, wound care, rehabilitation and surgery, including the Da Vinci robotic surgery, Hayes Med is your comprehensive health provider for people throughout Western Kansas. Hayes Med, helping people be healthy.
Eagle Communications is your ultimate business partner. We provide business class phone with customizable features and fast, reliable internet. Your knowledgeable team at Technology Solutions has a broad base of IT services to meet your needs. Let the experts at Marketing Solutions get your message to the right people on the best platforms. The only piece missing is your business. Call Eagle Communications today at 877-61-EAGLE.
Welcome back to the Eagle TV Forum. I'm Becky Kaiser, substituting today for Gary Shorman. Speaking of Gary, if you have any ideas about a forum interview, if you have questions or comments about forum interviews that you've seen, give Gary a shout out. His email address is gary.shorman@eaglecom.net. And of course, you can always check out the forum on our Facebook page. Today, we're talking to Linda Mills, who is the Executive Director for First Call for Help in Ellis County. And we're talking about the homelessness focus group that was held recently in Hays. Linda, there were a lot of different groups represented, and each one of those people who were there represents some sort of resource that is available to help with homelessness, but I got the impression that we're not talking to each other very well.
You know, there are some organizations that, you know, we as First Call for Help, we talk to them weekly. Because we work together in order to help somebody. But then some of the other organizations we don't talk to as much. We do have the Hays Homeless Coalition, which is just a local group that does meet fairly regularly, once a month or every other month in that same room where we were at. Now this forum was actually sponsored by the statewide Homeless Coalition. And they had brought in a special presenter to kind of conduct the forum for us.
Was any of this information shared with the state a surprise? Do they understand that this does exist in rural western Kansas?
They do. They do. Every year we do what's called the point in time count, and that is it's a federal program where they encourage every county in the nation to do a homeless count. And that is what they base their overall funding for the nation on. And so that does filter down to the state level, and then at the state level can filter down to different agencies in the state. And while you know, cities like Wichita and Kansas City and Topeka, it's not unusual at all for them to have a lot of different federal grants related to housing. But the further west you come in Kansas, the fewer of those you see, because we haven't really been able to get a good count or know. We just know at our agencies how many people come in the door every day and ask us for things that we can't do or that we can't help with.
And I guess we should also clarify, and especially when you talked about First Call for Help, it originally started as help for transients, but when we talk homelessness, these are people that have been counted within Ellis County.
Right, they are actual residents. They live here in Ellis County. We still provide transient assistance, and that's usually in the form of a fuel voucher or a bus voucher to Salina, where we know there are services. Many people say, oh, we just ship them off to Salina. And yes, that we are sending them to Salina, but it's not because we don't necessarily want them in the county, but that's where the services are. If we don't have them here in Hays, our goal is to get them someplace where they do have the services.
Well, let's talk about the resources available in Ellis County for the homeless. You talked about what First Call for Help does, but there were a lot of agencies that you said represented at this gathering. What else is available?
There is some rent assistance through First Call and also through a couple of other agencies. Catholic Charities and Salvation Army are the ones that we work with most often, but there are other agencies that for their specific clients, they can sometimes help with rent or things like that, but you have to be a client, so it's not likely that we could just refer someone over there. But really, Catholic Charities, First Call for Help, and Salvation Army are about the only agencies that are able to, they have specific funding for emergency rent assistance and utility assistance. And what that does is it's our effort to prevent homelessness, to prevent them from being evicted. It's kind of a Band-Aid on a more problem at a deeper level with making decisions financially, getting education so that they can get better jobs.
Well, that kind of leads to my next question. What are the main causes of homelessness in this area, in Ellis County?
There are a lot of issues with mental illness and that goes untreated, whether that's because of lack of funding, for the state, because we know they have cut those funds quite a bit. And so that is definitely a part of it, is the mental health and stability of some of the people that are needing help. Other issues associated with it are the lack of a living wage. So if they're working a low-wage job, they're not making enough to really be able to pay rent, have a car to get back and forth to work, because that means gas and insurance and tires. There's just a lot of expenses just in daily living, and you just can't afford that on a low wage. And there is something to be said also just for lack of knowledge about making financial decisions, setting priorities, and being able to stick with that, being able to say, no, my number one priority is having a roof over my head. So
instead of that cell phone that we all think, the new one we think we all have to have.
And cell phones, they get kind of a bad rap sometimes with low income, but if you think about it, how do you look for a job? If you don't have a home and a landline to go with it. And there's not very many places that even have the paper applications. A lot of the applications are online. Now, I'm not saying that people need to get big plans with unlimited data, but everyone needs to be able to communicate and facilitate that job search. And
finally, Linda, what could you suggest to our viewers about maybe something we could do to help with this? Do we need to volunteer, donate money? What do you think we can help with?
That's part of what that forum was all about, is how do we address some of these issues in our community? People are oftentimes more willing to help. They're very helpful, generous, they want to volunteer. But we have to get at, what does Hayes really need to address this? First Call for Help has been doing some of that with their board, and I know other agencies are as well. I think for the community at large, just to be more aware of what's going on in their own community. And know, kind of what is our church doing, or things like that. So just being aware of what's going on, and
just know that it's happening.
And the different resources. Take the time to find out what's available in your community. And maybe you're going to be the one with the solution. Well, I know we have this, this, and this, but we don't have this. So it could come from anybody.
Good idea. Well, Linda, thank you so much for joining us today. Linda Mills, of course, Executive Director of First Call for Help in Ellis County, talking about homelessness in Ellis County and some of the problems and hopefully some of the solutions. Thank you so much for joining us on the ECTV Forum, brought to us today by Hayes Med. I'm Becky Kaiser, in for Gary Shorman. Thanks for watching.
Are you frustrated with Wi-Fi dead zones in your home? It happens when you don't have Boost, the cutting-edge Wi-Fi solution from Eagle Communications. A Boost-certified Eagle technician maps your home, then installs a dual-band modem and router, plus discrete access points to deliver wall-to-wall Wi-Fi with no dead zones. Boost powers all your family's devices in all the places you love to live. Get Boost. Wi-Fi made simple. Only from Eagle Communications. Call today.